Okay, we are going to start talking about factoring. And in order to factor, you need to remember what factors are. Okay, so over here to the side, we're going to write factors are two numbers that multiply to give you the number you are looking for. Okay, two numbers that multiply to give you the number you're looking for. And how do I know what number I'm looking for? Well, the point of today's lesson is to take this trinomial and work backwards. So at the moment, we've been taking this, we've been multiplying it out, and we've been getting a final answer. And we want to factor it, which means I want to work backwards and create this binomial. And every time I do that, there's a process. The process goes like this. Take the first term, multiply it by the last term. 15 times 2 is 30. And if you look at all of these problems, every time it's 15 times 2. So I'm going to get the number 30. And so what I want to do are list the factors of 30. What two numbers give you 30? And so you need to always start with 1. 1 and 30 give you 30. But if I'm looking at a positive number, two positives give me that number or two negatives. So -1 and -30. Okay. 2 and 15 give me 30. Which means that -2 and -15 give me 30. Okay, and then I'm going to keep going. And now I forgot to turn my calculator on. Let's see if you can see this. So what I'm going to do here to figure out my factors, I'm going to type in 30 and I'm going to divide by 1. So 1 and 30. I'm going to divide by 2. So 2 and 15. I'm going to divide by 3, which means now I have 3 and 10. I'm going to divide by 4. I get a fraction. 4 is not a factor. I'm going to divide by 5, and I get 6. And 5 and 6 are factors. So if you're not sure how to find factors, you need to use your calculator. Okay, so let's write down what we found. 3 and 10, -3, -10, 5 and 6, -5, -6. Okay, so those are my factors of 30. Now, that's what we multiplied to. How do we get this middle term? The middle term is taking your factors and adding them. So 1 and 30 give me 31. If they're both negative, then it's a -31. So this is 17, -17. 3 plus 10 is 13, or -13. 5 plus 6 is 11. -5 and -6 is -11. So here, factors of 30 that add to -31. Well, that would be these. Factors of 30 that add to 17. That would be these. Okay. So this is the process that we need to do. And so we're going to practice just filling in what I call the magic X. And we're going to fill it in by taking the first term times the last term, and we get 27x squared, and that goes in the top. So the top of the x is the first term times the last term. The bottom of the x is your middle term. That goes to the bottom, and it's negative, so -28x. Okay, and then I gave you some Post-it notes, so I want you to take your Post-it note, and on it I want you to write factors of 27. That's the top number, okay? So always find factors of the top number. And we're going to write them out. 1 and 27. Which also means -1 and -27. 2 does not go into 27, but 3 does. 3 and 9, and -3, -9. Okay. Once we find our factors, then we write the sum. The sum means I add them together. 1 and 27 is 28. Here I get -28. 3 and 9 is 12. -3, -9 is -12. Okay. So which factors of 27 add to my bottom of the x, my -28? Well, that's this part right here. So I'm going to write these two numbers on the sides of the x. And I'm going to put an x with it. And that's all we're going to do today. We're going to practice doing this step. This is the hardest step for factoring because it requires that you list out all of your factors. And so that's what we're going to practice over and over. And if you keep your list of factors, then some of them are going to repeat and you won't have to find them again. So put this over problem 1 and let's move on to problem 2. So again, the first step is take your first term times your last term and put it in the top. So that would give me 28x squared. Move the middle to the bottom, -11x. Okay, take another Post-it. This time we are trying to find factors of 28. Okay, factors of 28. So my factors are 1 and 28, or -1, -28. And again, if I'm not sure what my next factor is, then I type in 28 and I divide it by 2 and I get 14. So my next factor is 2 and 14, or -2 and -14. 28 divided by 3 gives me a fraction, so that doesn't work. 28 divided by 4 gives me 7. So 4 and 7, -4 and -7. And that's actually all of the factors for 28. So now, let's find the sum. Add them together. This gives you 29, -29, 16, -16, 11, and -11. So which factors of 28 add to -11? Well, right here. So that's what goes on the sides of the x. -4x, -7x. You want to keep this because it's going to come in handy in a little bit. Let's move over to number 2. Okay. Again, the process says take the first term times the last term. There's an invisible 1 here, so 1 times 8 is 8x squared. Move the middle to the bottom. Take another Post-it. And this time, we are finding factors of the top number. So factors of 8. 1 and 8, -1, -8. I'm always going to start with 1, okay? 2 and 4, -2, -4, and that's all your factors of 8. So now I'm going to list out my sum. 1 plus 8 is 9. This is negative 9, positive 6, and negative 6. So factors of 8 that add to 6, here we are, 2 and 4. So 2x and 4x. Okay. All right, go ahead and turn your paper over. Okay. Take another Post-it. And for number 4, first term times last term. So that gives me 45x squared. Move the 18 to the bottom. And here I'm finding factors of 45. So again, I'm just going to show you how I would do it on my calculator. I would type in 45 divided by 1 gives me 45. So I have 1 and 45. Negative 1, negative 45. Divide by 2 doesn't work. Divide by 3. 3 and 15, which means negative 3, negative 15. Divide by 4 doesn't work. Divide by 5. 5 and 9. Negative 5, negative 9. Okay. And that's actually all of your factors of 45. So now we add them up. So we find the sum. And I get 46, negative 46, 18, negative 18, 14, and negative 14. So which factors do I want on either side? Well, I want the ones that add to 18, so that's this one and this one. 3x and 5x, or 15x. Okay. All right, you try 7, 10, 11, and 12. So right now, you are doing 7, 10, 11, and 12. And the reason I'm having you do those ones is because you've already found the factors. So I need you to go through the process. Multiply the first times the last, put the middle in the bottom, and figure out what goes on either side. Okay. We're going to move on to number 5. And this time I gave you a different Post-it, a different color Post-it, and I have a reason for that. So let's look at number 5. We still follow the same process. First term times last term. 2 times negative 10 is negative 20. X squared. Move the middle to the bottom, and there's a 1 there, so negative 1x. Now this time, I am finding factors of negative 20. So when you find factors of a negative number, that means one number is positive and one number is negative, right? When you multiply, a positive times a negative is a negative. So I have 1 and negative 20. Or I flip the negative and I put negative 1 and positive 20. And then I have 2 and negative 10. Or negative 2 and positive 10. 3 does not go into 20, but 4 does. 4 and negative 5. or negative 4, and positive 5. And those are all my factors. And so I wanted to show you this one different just because one has to be positive and one has to be negative. And you flip the sign. So now let's find the sum. We still do the same thing. We still add them together. We get negative 19, positive 19, negative 8, positive 8, negative 1, and positive 1. And so the factors of negative 20 that add to negative 1 are here, 4x and negative 5x. All right. So that goes with that one. And then let's do number 6 together. Again, first term times last term, which is negative 18x squared, the middle to the bottom. So this time I need to find factors of negative 18. Okay, so I have 1 and negative 18, or negative 1 and positive 18, 2 and negative 9, or negative 2 and positive 9, and then 3 and negative 6, or negative 3 and positive 6. And then let's find the sum. Add it up, you get negative 17, positive 17, negative 7, positive 7, negative 3, and positive 3. So the factors of negative 18 that add to 7 are negative 2 and positive 9. Okay. All right, you try 8 and 9. And again, you already have all of the factors, so I just need you to go through the process and then look back at your Post-it notes to figure out which numbers go in between.